Rishi Sunak, MII, missing in inaction. Hello everyone, my name's Matt Johnson and this is The Interesting Times, which is a political comedy report from the UK. The big story of the last few days is of course the debate and voting on the Partygate Privileges Committee report into Boris Johnson's misleading of the House. And Johnson himself advised his allies not to get involved with the vote. Maybe because he just wanted to let the country heal? To realise now that the government needed to help everyone with dealing with the cost of living crisis? Nah, Johnson did so because it would show just how little support there was for him in the House. Besides, he's already left office, so the vote into the punishment was sort of irrelevant. And speaking of irrelevant, Say Everything Two Times Minister Rishi Sunak was playing his cards close to his chest about which way he'd vote.
Matter for the House, not for the government, and that's why each and individual colleagues will make up their own mind when the time comes.
So are you not going to be there?
I said each and individual colleague will make up their own mind when the time comes. This is a matter for the House rather than for the government.
He then folded by not even appearing at the debate or the vote. Oh, he had better things to do.
At the same period of time over the period, you may have noticed Ed Davey has been very busy. Like me, you would have probably seen that he was busy trying to convince everybody that women clearly had penises. And I was reflecting, you'll all know, I am a big fan of everybody studying maths to 18. But it turns out that we need to focus on biology to 18.
Yes, biology is important. For instance, the question of if it's possible to effectively lead a country without a backbone.
Is Rishi Sunak in hiding?
No, he's running the country, and that's what he should be doing, and Penny represented the government very well. Rishi was off doing, frankly, something more important. I don't have a
parliamentary democracy not important?
Yes, a very important job of avoiding the Partygate report by going through a gate to get to a party.
Evening, you're a Boris Johnson ally.
Fortitude is fantastic, but I'm afraid
You're going to vote for him tonight? David T.C. Davis.
Nick, how are you?
I'm very well. How are you?
I'm very well indeed.
On this summer's evening, are you going to be voting against for this?
Yes,
you will
be voting.
For or against? Therese Coffey, are you going to follow Theresa May's advice and stand up and vote for this report? Tom Tugendhat is a very well-known fan of Boris Johnson. You're presumably heading over very soon to vote for this report.
Nick, is this really news?
Not voting for it. Chloe Smith, summer drinks before rushing off to vote for the Boris Johnson report?
Leaving the Conservative Party's side of the House looking emptier than a cake tin at Boris Johnson's house. And here is Home Secretary Suella Not-So-Braverman, who at the start of the debate departed the chambers faster than a flight to Rwanda as she suddenly realised she had to be at that party too.
Can I first of all say I thank the honourable gentleman for
economic activity of public.
Leader of the House, Benny Morton.
I beg to move the motion in my name.
But there are also exceptions. As for a party so obsessed about whether a woman can have a penis, it was certainly clear that they can have balls.
As the member for Portsmouth North, I will be voting to support the committee's report and recommendations.
If people see us making rules for them and acting as if they are not for us, that trust that I spoke about between the public and Parliament is undermined.
For my own part, I will be supporting today's motion to approve the fifth report. I'm sad that it's come to this, and I'm particularly sorry to all of my constituents who have written to tell me that they kept the rules when others clearly did not.
Shame, shame, shame on those who are working to undermine him and his future prospects. He is a decent and honourable member, as are all members of the Privileges Committee.
And that wasn't the end of it, as other Tories stood up and showed integrity and courage.
The nation wants to see its conclusion. The nation who puts us here wants to make sure that this process reaches its conclusion. I repeat again that I will be supporting this report here today in the House.
If ministers tell the truth at that dispatch box, if they don't, accountability is impossible, and then we're on a very, very slippery slope.
All right. Well, thank you, everyone. It seems that we now have a governing party that has integrity and is ready to speak the truth. I think my work here is done. So, well, I guess all good things come to an end. Thank you very much, and See you at the ballot box. Retirement wouldn't have suited me anyway. Don't let me down, Jacob.
I'm very grateful to the Right Honourable and Learned Lady, but I wonder if she could say something of her own position in relation to the precedent set by the Judicial Committee of the House of Lords, when a decision on which Lord Hoffman was involved was set aside not because he was biased, but because of the perception of bias. How does she think she met the Hoffman test?
Perception matters, and I don't want to do this if the government doesn't have confidence in me, because I need the whole House to have confidence in the work that the committee has mandated. And I was assured that I should continue the work that the House had mandated with the appointment that the House had put me into, and so I did just that.
Yeah. Your balls, sir. That was brutal on Jacob. The only thing he fears more than an empowered female Labour lawyer are the metric system and daylight. But Jacob wasn't the only one prepared to go to the wall for the wall E. Here is the Member of Parliament for Stone. And the two things Tories value above all else, bill and cash.
If you knock out the word knowingly, you knock out the intention as well. And that is a fundamental question of process on which I will hopefully, if I catch your eye, Madam Deputy Speaker, I will want to refer.
Well, I'm going to ferociously agree with the honourable gentleman, because I said earlier he knowingly lied to Parliament. And that is what the committee has concluded. Yeah. I know there was a point at which people thought that they would only consider recklessly.
It's so easy to get confused. Did he knowingly mislead? Did he recklessly mislead? Did he deliberately mislead? Did he misleadingly mislead? Nick, something else the Tories like doing, Fletcher was on hand with a helpful comparison.
Now, the report says that he misled the House. The question is the committee right that he did it deliberately, and is the punishment fair? And this is where I struggle. Let me use a football analogy. If Man City's star player had to sit in front of 7 of his peers for a hearing, how fair would it be if 3 of the committee were Man United players? Not very. No matter how honourable, the opportunity to take out the opposition's star player, I think it would just be too much. I think if we are going to use MPs as committee members, which I think we should, who else knows what this job is like, then they must be of the same party. We must select Labour members for Labour MPs hearing and Conservative members for Conservative MPs hearing. Many may say, well, they will always find them not guilty. But that's not what happened here.
Stop.
And lay members could still sit.
Stop.
Now I want to speak to our constituents.
Stop. Right, so just to be clear, Nick Fletcher has used a football analogy to try to determine innocence or guilt on the individual that held the highest post in the land. And that's not the maddest thing about this speech. No, the maddest thing is that he thinks that only Conservative MPs should investigate other Conservative MPs, because this committee wants to get rid of Boris Johnson because he was a Conservative PM. And some of them weren't Conservative MPs, although the committee had a majority of Conservative MPs, which proves his point. Conservative MPs can investigate other Conservative MPs without bias in favour of Conservative MPs, as they all found Boris Johnson, a Conservative PM, guilty of misleading Parliament.
And this is where I struggle.
You're not the only one. Boris Johnson's backer and barber, Nia Leachy, then got involved, and Boris' allies probably wish she hadn't.
Because I cannot see where the evidence is where Boris Johnson misled Parliament knowingly, intentionally or recklessly.
It's having read the report that she sees no evidence of Boris Johnson's wrongdoing. Does she agree with me that there is none so blind as those who will not see?
I thank the honourable gentleman for his comments, but for those people who haven't got anything more interesting to do than actually spend their time reading the whole of the report.
And then on to the vote itself. And those in favour of the report numbered 353, those against 6. Even Jacob keeps Boggs slinked off back to his coffin rather than vote. And that was it. The 5-hour debate followed the release of the 106-page Privileges Committee 14-month report that took testimony from hundreds of witnesses, costing the taxpayer millions of pounds, including over $250,000 on Johnson's defence alone, to decide that Johnson lied. But there were still people who believed in them.
Can MPs, is it right? And I think this committee is a case in point. When it's chairwoman, which person goes to court and is accused, where the judge decides that person is guilty before the trial even commences.
If you set up, and Boris was Prime Minister when this was set up, a system to look at something and then report to the whole of Parliament, then only when it comes down against you do you say, this is all a kangaroo court.
No. You come down and say it when it goes against you, when the evidence doesn't back up what the findings are.
I've heard the argument you just had about that, so we could go over that.
And 3 against 1 like. Now.
Yeah.
There's something going wrong in our booking system too.
Yeah, but MPs sort of say, hang on, I'm responsible to my constituents. Why is this person telling me what I can and can't do? Yeah, but isn't that because we're just so up ourselves sometimes? Just because we think that nobody externally actually understands us or understands our job or what we do.
Nobody externally or indeed internally understands what you do, Nadine. You are, for all intents and purposes, a one-piece jigsaw. Nadine, though, has been clear about the committee's prejudice against Johnson and how some of those in the House of Commons have it in for Johnson. And she has a solution.
I think that's a perfectly good argument to have. And if Parliament wants to have that argument and say, OK, fine, we're going to hand over all our disciplinary and standards measures to an external body.
But you and I both know what will happen. We'll have that debate in a calm and orderly way, and then we'll vote on it, and everybody will vote to keep the status quo and to keep MPs marking other MPs' homework.
Well, Doris is in favour of an independent panel to investigate MPs, much like the independent expert panel, which today upheld an appeal by SNP Member of Parliament John Nicholson against a complaint of bullying and harassment by, drumroll please, Nadine Dorries. Catch up with Nadine on Talk TV next time to find out why, in her opinion, independent panels should only come from members of her family. Thank you all so much for watching, and if you are enjoying these videos, feel free to subscribe to the channel, sharing and hitting all the notification bell, and also subscribe to my Patreon or make a donation to my Ko-fi. And I'll see you all tomorrow. Take care.